how to manage load, conditioning, strength training, when coaches aren't well versed in the world of strength and conditioning. Too high intensity, too often. That's a bummer that your coaches aren't well versed in strength and conditioning, but that's also kind of normal. So it's a very, very, very good question, because this is what probably a lot of you watching this will be subject to. So I think there's a few different answers and there's a few different ways you can go about it. First and foremost, I would suggest suggesting a change to your coach. Like, people way too often are afraid to make suggestions to coaches. They're afraid to question their coaches. They're afraid to, get any sort of dialogue going. But I think that's actually that should always be your first port of call. If the coach rejects it and is a bit of a dick, then we go to other options. But absolutely, first and foremost, if you communicate well and suggest what's going wrong, most coaches, if not all coaches, will be very receptive to that. So if you just say, I'm trying to improve outside of practice and we've just got too much going on, and I think we're pushing ourselves and we're running ourselves into the ground. Maybe he justifies it, and you probably won't agree. And you can gather as much data as you can. If you were to make an argument to any person, you would want to make the best argument you can so that they are on the same page as you. So therefore, that's exactly what you've got to do with your coach. You've got to make sure that you're on the same page. So if they're not on the same page, then we have to make adjustments. And that would be my second suggestion: is if you go to the coach and you say, hey, this is what I think we should do, or I think we're just pushing ourselves too hard, or I'm feeling overly fatigued and it's just rough, and I can see it in a lot of the other players, or maybe it's just you personally, like I can't feel myself improving because I'm pushing myself too hard, then, and they're not receptive to that, then you're looking at potentially changing clubs. And that sounds kind of extreme, but I think that is what you got to do. Changing clubs or changing teams, because you got to remember that you're playing rugby. Yes, obviously rugby's a great team game and everything, but you're playing rugby, when you really boil it down, for yourself and your own improvements. So if you do so, like if you're stuck with a coach that is just holding you back, that's holding you back. That's limiting your development. That's limiting the amount of success that you can have with the game. So and enjoyment, right? Which at the end of the day is why we all play rugby. So potentially looking at changing clubs, changing teams. Unfortunately, that is an option that is available to a lot of people, and it's an option that a lot of people are resistant to because they've got mates. But rugby is an awesome sport, no matter where you play it. As long as you don't find a terrible club, you're going to be fine. And yeah, that's genuinely a suggestion that I would make. And then finally, if you maybe you change clubs and the next coach is the same, or you you just want to stay at your club and changing clubs isn't viable, then you just have to look at, you kind of have to flip your rugby training or the way you program your training on its head. You can't look at it. This is the same way I deal with in-season programming, right? You can't look at it in terms of what are my outcomes that I absolutely need to come from. So do I need to get strength? Do I need to get grow muscle? Do I need to get faster, etc., etc.? You have to look at right, how much volume am I able to put in? So if you've got so much fatigue that you can only put a little bit of volume towards whatever, towards progressing your training, towards progressing your strength or your speed or whatever it is, then that's all you've got. And maybe there's a point where you just have to look at just maintaining most things, and you look at what can you do with a lower intensity. So it's all about managing fatigue. So look at what things that you can do at lower intensity so that they don't fatigue you outside of your training, so that you can recover from your rugby training. Look at lower volume work. Again, so if you're doing things like sprints that you can't do at low intensities, high strength work, which you can't do at low intensities, power work, which you can't do at low intensities, then look at real low volume. As little as 1 to 2 sets on things that you want to really try to improve. That can work for strength work. For power work, you're looking at 3 to 4 sets for different movements. And you can keep that volume really low. And you'll be able to you'll be able to progress without all of that fatigue that usually comes along with, real high intensity strength and power work. The other thing I would absolutely advise you do is condense your stresses. So if you can, right, try to do your high intensity stuff and your high fatigue stuff on the days that you have rugby, on the days that your coach is in charge of you and he's already going to fatigue you into the ground. That way, you've got the days away from those sessions that you can recover from, and actually utilize your recovery to the fullest. Whereas if you were today, say you had, it's just your traditional Tuesday, Thursday training, rugby training days. If you're already like semi fatigued going into your like by doing a high intensity session on the Monday, maybe you're doing sprints, maybe you're doing heavy strength work on the Monday, and then you go to the Tuesday and it's a brutal session. By Wednesday you are dead to the ground, like you are rough, right? And then you've got another high intensity session or a high fatiguing session on the Wednesday. It just makes things so much more difficult to be able to progress, and in fact it makes it kind of impossible to progress because you're just so fatigued that you'll burn out before the end of 3 weeks. So look to condense those stresses. Rather, you want to put those high intensity sessions, that heavy strength work, the speed work, on the days before your rugby. Ideally, it's not going to, like, your in the day recovery is never going to be that bad. So you can do it either in the morning or literally just a couple hours, or at lunchtime a couple hours, or like literally within the hour before you go to training, right? So say if you've got training at 7 o'clock, you can go smash the gym 5:30 till 6:30, drive to however further it is to go to your training session, do that. That's a great way to do it. Like that's rough that in those moments, but outside of that, you get a lot of recovery after that.